You've probably heard of the Appalachian Trail, the long-distance hiking trail that goes from Maine to Georgia. But have you ever heard of the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, the long-distance canoe trail that crosses the northeastern states? Well, in today's episode, you're going to find out all about it. Hello, welcome to another episode of Massachusetts and Bay State Backcountry. Well, in today's episode, in previous episodes, I talked about my through hike of the Appalachian Trail when I walked 2,000 miles from Maine to Georgia back in 1981. Well, in 2013, I canoed the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, a 750-mile long canoe trail that starts in Old Forge, New York, and ends up in Fort Kent, Maine. And took us 45 days to paddle 750 miles. A lot of different skills in backpacking. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about some of the skills and the equipment that I brought on the Northern Forest Canoe Trail. And then in future episodes, I'll share a little bit more about what paddling in each state was like. So stay tuned and learn about the Northern Forest Canoe Trail. Well, the Northern Forest Canoe Trail is a canoe trail 750 miles long. It goes from Old Forge, New York, up north through New York State, across Vermont, briefly into the province of Quebec, across New Hampshire, and then up through Maine to Fort Kent. And when you complete the through paddle of it, just like a through hike of the AT, you get a certificate of completion. So I did that in 2013. The equipment and the gear that I brought. So here's some of the stuff we had. So there's my canoe. I had a 16-foot Old Town Penobscot canoe. And you can see there, that is my Portage cart. So those are removable wheels, and we use that when we portaged from one lake to another. I also brought a solar panel, and that it's a folding solar panel. And with that, I was able to charge my batteries for my camera and for my lights and for any of our other electronics. There's my PFD, our complete set of maps. And then there's two plastic buckets with gamma lids, which we use to carry a lot of our food and also to sit on. Then also, too, is I brought two paddles. I had a single paddle and a kayak paddle. I used both at various times on the trip, and as you'll see. And one of the most important pieces of equipment I had was my Portage bag. So there it is, a waterproof backpack for carrying all of my equipment when we weren't paddling. So this was not a solo trip. I did it with other people, and so the paddlers themselves, there was me. There I am standing by one of the canoe trail registers. This is actually in the province of Quebec. So there's myself. I went the whole 750 miles. I also went with my buddies Don, Dave, and Dave. So that's Don on the left, the two Daves in the middle. Don went with us all the way to Plattsburgh, New York. Then he left, and I paddled alone for about 400 miles until my wife Carrie came and joined us in Jackman, Maine. So those are the paddlers. A long-distance canoe expedition takes a lot of very different skills. One of the most important skills is portaging. So for the most of the time, you're paddling on water, but there's times where you do have to portage your boat over land. And so sometimes we literally just dragged it through the woods. Here we are kind of pulling up. You can see our portage wheels to the side there. And you're going to see is that when the trail allowed us to, we would put our canoe onto the portage cart wheels, which made it very, very easy to carry. Made a huge difference. You can kind of see once everything's in there, the canoe basically becomes a big wheelbarrow. And we just have all of our gear, and then we just overland it to wherever the next river or the next lake or water system is. Once it's balanced, it's really pretty easy to walk. You can kind of see that. So there's the Daves portaging their boat. There was a lot of times when we were paddling solo where I had to portage alone. And here, I can still see I'm able to do it. This is a really long uphill portage in Vermont. And then there were times where we actually are able to get on the road, and it just rolls along really easy. Really great to have it and not have to carry the canoe over our heads all the time. When you're on the water, there's another whole set of skills that you need, such as paddling, lining, and snubbing. So for paddling, when we were on the big lakes, this is when I would use my kayak paddle, especially when I was solo. It really gave me a lot more power going into a headwind or going into big waves. When I was on the river, I generally use my single paddle. So obviously I have paddling flat water and whitewater skills. I also have a lot of paddling upriver. Again, here I am paddling on a slow river. Really nice stuff in Maine. I really find that the kayak paddle just made you feel like you're in four-wheel drive. But when we're doing whitewater, I would use my single paddle. And so there is a lot of whitewater too. And so when we're in the whitewater, is typically I'm not able to get my camera out and take pictures, but there is a lot of whitewater, and so you do need the skills to be able to read the river and navigate the obstacles, and find the proper channel, and learn how to handle the waves and keep your boat from capsizing. We also had a lot of upriver paddling. So there are times when we would paddle upriver, but sometimes when the current was strong, we would snub our canoes upriver. So snubbing is when you're using your painter lines and you're basically towing your canoe upriver. So here we are, we're actually in Vermont, just about to cross the Canadian line, and this is on the Missisquoi River, and so the water was really moving pretty fast here, and then you'll see some of the bigger currents in a minute that we encountered. But this is what we call snubbing. So you're wading in the water, you're using your painter line, and you're basically dragging your canoe upriver. These are some of the rapids. There's no way we could paddle up that. And so we actually had to wade in and tow our canoes up against that current to get into Canada. So that's paddling and snubbing. Lining is when you're doing the same thing, but you're going downriver. So when you're going downriver, but the obstacles of the rapids are too heavy to safely negotiate, is you actually use your fore and aft painter line to kind of walk your canoe down the river, almost like a dog on a leash. So these are all part of the skill set you need to do a canoe expedition like this. Camping. So the entire expedition took us 45 days. And it is a marked canoe trail, and some of the campsites have shelters, just like the AT. Other campsites don't, and so we did have our tents, and so we tented out more than anything else. We tented out more than we used shelters. For meals, we just ate alongside the river, and for lunch, we just ate along the river. For dinner and for breakfast, we took turns cooking meals each day, and just ate along the river, and then just really enjoyed the camp spots. They really, really are beautiful. We had a lot of different weather. The first couple of weeks we had a lot of rain, so the water was very, very high. But then things got better as we kind of went along. Here you can kind of see our bear bags, our bear canisters. So we did bring bear canisters, but we never really needed them. There was one day we saw a bear, but it was never an issue. Here we are on Moosehead Lake, about to do the Northeast Carry, a very historic portage. And here we are kind of heading up into Maine, and on the Allagash, the end in Fort Kent is in sight at this point. We're encountering moose along the way. Probably we did see several moose in Maine, but probably the most common exotic wildlife that we saw was the whole way we saw bald eagles pretty much every single day on the expedition. So it really was a great trip. This gives a quick overview of what we brought, who we were, and what we did, and what the trail is. If you like this, I am going to be posting another video soon that shows the entire journey and every state that we went through along the way. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Thank you.